Hello and welcome to the romance track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z and Morgan Brice. And tonight we are doing the Mail Romance Roundup. But before we start talking about all those great books, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Layla.
Hi, I'm Layla Dorine. I write all the M's, put all the M's in there, and whole lot of paranormal and rocker boys and biker boys and just about anything I can get my hands on.
Sounds good. Davidson.
I'm Davidson King, and I write LGBT romantic suspense and paranormal. Definitely the mafia, assassins, morally ambiguous characters. It's kind of my jam. No matter if they're vampires or not, there's something wrong with them.
Anna.
I'm Anna Kensing. I write queer romance, mostly but not exclusively and I just can't seem to stay in my lane. So I've got some paranormal historical, some with tentacles, and some contemporary, and some small town, and I just all kinds of things.
Great. Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Burke. I am a USA Today best-selling author, and I've written just about 100 books. So I got a lot of awards and books under my belt. And I love writing my mail ever since, fan fiction started. But I write mostly in paranormal, but I do mystery. I do horror, mystery, horror, and some fantasy. So I'm just sitting back, writing, having fun doing this. Finally, my imagination has an outlet.
And JL.
Hi, I'm JL Gribble. I started out writing urban fantasy and alternate history, but I'm working on a spin-off series from that universe, which will be my first paranormal romance, which should come out this fall. But until then, and for the last couple of years, I've been a prolific book reviewer. So I'm like quietly fangirling over a bunch of you right now.
I'm Gail Z and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. Many of those series do have prominent LGBTQ characters, but as Morgan Brice, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. And of course, all of my modern day series, as Gail or Morgan, characters cross over, know each other, the series intersect. So it's all one big, well, one of my friends called it the Martin Cinematic Universe. Not exactly Marvel, but we're closing in on it. So yeah, lots of sexy times. So, Stephanie kind of brought up something, but I wanted to use it for the first question, which is how did you get into reading and writing male romance? Layla?
So when I was in college, I used to game every night. There was always a role play game going on. And then I had my first kid, and you cannot take a baby, especially a fussy one, to a D&D game. It does not work in your favor. So a friend of mine actually told me about these online role play games where you could write what your characters were doing and you could drop in at any time of the day or night. So this is over 20 years ago now. And I mean, back then we were writing on ICQ to tell you how long ago that was. So I started playing the game, and I played the game for 17 years, and I was writing these storylines, and it started heading in this direction with my wrestling characters, actually, because it was online wrestling e-feds that I was doing. And a friend of mine goes, "You have really got to turn these things into books." So my first novel, which came out in 2015, was actually based off of the 17 years worth of role playing with the characters that I'd done. And after that, I was hooked. It was no more going back to the game. It was all like, I just want to see how many books and stories I could write and where they could go.
All right, great. Davidson.
Well, I actually started off as a fan fiction writer, and I got like a lot of readers who were requesting like male pairing. So I decided to write one, and I was like, wow, this really is fun. But I was still terrified to write a book. So I opened a review blog, Diverse Reader, and I did that for about 9 years. And I kind of watched all the books coming, and, I was silently like writing in the background when I wasn't doing that, and then released my first book, and it was pretty much uphill, downhill from there. Like it felt right. So that's just kind of like what I stuck to.
Very good. Anna.
So I started reading romance in fan fiction first, when I was in law school, and really overwhelmed by all of the things that I was reading in law school, and needed, sort of a outlet of not cases to be reading. And so I started reading Buffy the Vampire Slayer fanfic, and my OTP was Spike and Angel. And it was sort of like I had read like queer, stories before, and they all died in the end, and nobody had a happy ending. And it was, so it was sort of revelatory to read super sexy, super dirty romance between, male characters. And I didn't really start writing myself until after law school and after some years of being a lawyer. And it's sort of shocking the number of former lawyers there are who are romance writers now.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, right? So for all the same reasons that other lawyers have turned romance novelists, I decided to start writing. And I kind of dabbled, like I've been reading straight romance since I was a kid, and I sort of started dabbling in like, other romance and literary fiction, and then finally realized that I should be writing what I was enjoying reading so very, very much. And so I have written a little bit of fanfic, but have been very much enjoying writing for queer romance, romance for publication.
Okay. Stephanie.
This is funny. My infatuation goes back to there was this TV show where they had the little curly haired professor, and the police detective had like super senses. And for the life of me, it's
Sentinel. The Sentinel.
Yes, thank you, the Sentinel. And I was watching when they moved in with each other, I was looking at the dynamic, and I said, oh, they are in a major relationship, and the little dude's the top. So that got me thinking, if I see this and I look at it this way, then there has to be somebody else who's been pairing these characters together like I've been pairing in my mind forever. And I went on, and it was like Prodigy. So, you had to dial up a certain time of night, and it was a mess. But I found Kirk and Spock fan fiction. And then I thought about it, and I was like, ooh, and throw Bones in and make it a threesome. Yay! So I started reading just about every fan fiction I could get my hands on. And when I started writing, back in 2001, I'm old, but back in 2001, when I started my writing career, one of the first things I did was like, okay, let me see, let these people be seen. Because I started writing because, nobody really looked like me in these novels. So representation, and I had to fight to get that in there. But I went back and was sending clips of the old, the Star Trek. And then one of my editor's favorite TV shows, I started sending her fan fiction from that. And they were secondary characters, but I got to keep them in. So, I mean, ever since then, it's like an explosion, and I'm so happy and proud because, now you can find novels that cover the gauntlet, RBGTQ novels. And I mean, that's awesome. And then I did find some old magazines that were supposed to be photographic. And then I found them in my house when we moved in, found out later that was old porn. That was the only way the guys can, get their sticky finger magazines, was these so-called photograph things. And they had photograph sessions. And that was like, wow. So, I mean, it's been around forever. I'm just glad I learned about this because I have so much fun writing it.
Very good. JL.
So I also got my start reading and writing a lot of fanfic, and it was always very queer heavy, but that was really incidental to me. I was way more into it for the fantasy elements, and that's what led me to writing urban fantasy, because I was never much into romance. And then 2016 happened, and I started really needing that that intentional happily ever after in all of my fiction, and the straight romance just wasn't doing it for me. And Anna Szabo, who I know through the graduate school program we went to, was kind of my gateway drug to romance. And I started just reading and reviewing prolifically, and when I finished when I was nearing the end of my urban fantasy series, I was like, I'm not done with this world. And that series has always been really queer inclusive. And so it kind of seemed natural to be like, I still really love a lot of these secondary characters and they deserve their time to shine. And so that's what led me to start writing in the same world, but a different genre. And it's really entertaining how many people have been like, well, it's about damn time. Like, we knew we'd get you eventually.
Well, oh,
I said one of us. Well,
I also, cut my teeth on fan fiction, and it was really funny because this was back when I was in high school and I was writing the original Hawaii Five-0 and Star Wars and some of these, and I always had, looking back, it's what would have been called hurt comfort now, but it was always very angsty and somebody was dying or almost dying, and there were these, heartfelt discussions, no sex, but a lot of that bonding kind of thing. And one of the few people that I trusted to read this said, "Are they gay?" And I said, "I don't know, are they?" Because that really hadn't been what was on my mind. Nobody was having sex, nobody was kissing, but yes, looking back, they definitely were. And this was also the Kirk Spock era. But what really got me into male romance and sparked the writing, I blame it all on Supernatural. I fell in love with the show. I couldn't stand to wait for hiatus to be over, so I knew about AO3, but I hadn't really hung out there before. And I discovered all the wonderful fan fiction, and then I said, I wonder what this slash stuff is like. And that got me hooked. And so I was reading all this wonderful, wonderful slash and thinking, this is just way too much fun. I wonder what the published non-fandom stuff looks like. And the first series I stumbled into was Jordan L. Hawk's Wyborn and Griffin series, which is still one of my all-time favorites. And I said, oh, this is just too much fun. I got to start writing this stuff. And that's when Morgan Brice was born. So yeah, I blame it on Hawaii Five-0, but mostly I blame it on Supernatural.
I held off so long getting into Supernatural fanfic because I had gotten so deep into the rabbit hole of Angel Spike fanfic when I was in law school that I was like, I can't open that door or I will never come out. And I was at a writing retreat with a friend, and we were talking about Supernatural and fanfic, and she was like, well, you should write some, because I too am a big Supernatural fan. And she was like, you should write some Supernatural fanfic. I'm like, can't open that door because I will never come out of that door. And she's like, oh, just do something and then throw it up. And yeah, so I opened that door, and yeah, it's exactly what I feared.
Hundreds and hundreds of stories that I've read later. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now this, speaking about opening a door, this is going to open Pandora's box, but what subgenres of male romance do you write? I know Stephanie's got a ton of them, but I think everybody here does. Layla?
So I have paranormal, and that includes, I've got lion shifters, I've got wolves, bears, I've got all kinds of shifters. I've even got alien crash landing in a cornfield next to this roadside diner. Was like the fourth book that I ever wrote, and it was literally written while I was waitressing and bartending at this little roadhouse place in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. But I have gotten into, like, I have a whole Biker Boys series. I have a lot of now too. And so she dragged me almost kicking and screaming into pet play. She hooked me with Rocktoberfest. she got me into the Rocktoberfest series, and I'm writing Rocktoberfest with her. And I'm like, yeah, the Rocker Boys, cool. You know, I still have all my old guitars. And then she's like, we should do this pet play. And I'm like, okay, I've gone to BDSM Writers Con back when they held it. I've gone to all these events. I know what it is. I've dabbled with it a little bit, but to write it, okay. So we deep dove off, kind of fell off the deep end. I actually have two pet play novels now that just came out this year, back to back, in April and in June. So that's been my latest genre. And now it looks like I might be doing like tattooing, like this tattoo shop and some other crazy stuff coming up. So it's always a little bit of something. I ride Harleys. I have bunches of tattoos. So if I live it, it's in my books.
Davidson.
Okay, so it's funny because I always kind of mix subgenres with tropes all the time. So I'm just kind of like gonna vomit it out to you. Just, you know, tick the boxes where it is. So, you know, again, I've paranormal and is when I started, it was just like mafia and hitman and all that stuff. And I wanted to write paranormal, and I went back and forth about changing my pen name, but I do it all on my one pen name, which is probably like a big like taboo, but whatever. So I like vampires, witches, dragons. I do, but I also do contemporary, in which I have like, you know, the boss employee, the grumpy, and the sunshine. I have I don't think there's anything I don't have. Actually, I don't have pet play. I don't have that. But I mean, there are pets in there. So I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of like all over the place, which I don't know if that's okay, but it's just kind of like what I am.
That's perfectly fine. Anna?
So I also am sort of all over the place. My first books and my first series is paranormal historical, because I too am a fan of Jordan L. Hawk and KJ Charles's paranormal historical books. So, and I love to meet some shifters, but I can't just do normal shifters. So they're octopus shifters and set in a town on the West Coast that, you know, it's sort of like got a lot of Victorian history to it. It was a major seaport at the entrance to Puget Sound. And so it's sort of like, I find my inspiration in, you know, places and historical events. So that's that. And then I have a couple contemporaries as well. One, again, wrapped up around a place. So during the pandemic, I spent a vacation in Greenville, Maine, and which has a big lake. It's like the second biggest lake in New England. And so we stayed there for a little while. And so I wrote a story set there. So it's a small town, you know, mechanics who specializes in restoring classic American cars, and the big city lawyer who comes into town, and sort of a opposites attract kind of, you know, competency kink on both sides. And then I also got into writing some kink stuff and some, you know, sort of daddy boy stuff. And there may be some pet play in the future for me as well. That's possibly in the works. We'll see where that goes. But I kind of just, I sort of follow my inspiration, and then I try to figure out how it fits into some sort of, you know, like marketing genre trope kind of way.
Okay. Stephanie?
Okay, I think I've hit every trope and every subtrope. My first was aliens, and then I jumped to paranormal, and under that you have vampires, you have werewolves, you have shapeshifters, and then I started doing exotic things like skunks and octopus and tentacle monsters and creepy little cat creatures and big old bunny creatures. I cannot think of one genre that I have not touched. Mechanics I have done, motorcycle bikers I'm working on, pony play I'm waiting to get to a dressage to actually see exactly what it's like so I can correct the story before I let out the Dark Circus series. I mean, if it pops into my imagination, I'm gonna do it. If something holds my fancy, I'm gonna do it. Sometimes the characters tell me what they're gonna do, and it totally screws up my darn outline, and have to go back to my editor, and I'm so sorry. It suddenly changed genres because the character wouldn't act right. He wanted a guy instead of girl. And along that goes the kink, and I mean, like I said, just about a few contemporary, but I prefer doing mystery and just straight out romance and horror. I tend to want to stay away from a little bit of problematic stuff because there's a million male novels about people coming out and having horrific things happen to them. I want my happy ending. Even if I have to drag them through the muck to get that, I'm going to get my happy ending. And I mean, I did bands, I did musicians, I created a band filled with old gods who were fading because when you stop believing in them, they fade away. So they made themselves rock gods. And this is how they're getting the worship, which is how they're still around. I have a lot of LGBTQ representation in that and main characters. I mean, if you can think about it, I think I have done it. The only thing I can think I haven't done was like librarian. And I'm probably going to start working on that because all of you are giving me ideas.
I have a librarian and he gets together with a mechanic.
Nice.
We have a librarian who's a fox shifter, so yeah.
Ooh.
JL?
So the first series that I'm working on is very much it's set in the same world as my urban fantasy series, so it, you know, not paranormal romance. But I'm having a lot of fun kind of taking the rules that I've established of this paranormal this urban fantasy world and like applying a lot of the fun romance tropes to them. And so I'm gonna have, for this series, I have mages, I have vampires, I have elves, I have the human representation of a weird shadow creature from another universe who's like learning how to human. And amid that, I have, you know, enemies to lovers and the bodyguard stuff, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. But I'm also noodling around a military romance idea, just straight, you know, contemporary military romance, because most military romance is always like the badass special forces guys, and I'm an Air Force wife, and that is not the military people I know. And so I really want to write a military romance with the military people that I know who are all cyber nerds, and I think that would be hilarious. But I read everything. So I would not be like, you know, from the sweetest, you know, low angst contemporary to the craziest kink stuff. If you've seen my blog, you know that I run the gamut. And so I would not be surprised if I just end up going down rabbit holes eventually.
Yeah, all my stuff is paranormal because everything I write is paranormal, since I think every story is better with a ghost in it, or two, maybe a vampire. So all of my stuff, as Gail or Morgan, is paranormal. But you know, with the romance, Hard Comfort's still my favorite thing. I love to see them angsting over each other and worried about, you know, somebody being hurt or are they going to die, or that's still my total jam. But I love the grumpy sunshine. I love the forced proximity. I love, I've done shifters and first responders who are shifters and librarians who are shifters and feigning goats who are shifters. I've done a fair number of cops or former cops, former private investigators, psychics, mediums, necromancers, agents, federal agents. So, you know, some law enforcement in there too. And I've done historical with the Sharps and Springfield series. That's kind of a steampunk male. So yeah, I love all of those things. And I have not done tentacle monsters, but never say never, because I have also done raccoon and possum shifters who fall deeply, madly in love. So, you know, anything's possible. So what do you like most about writing male romance? Layla?
The happily ever after, that's the huge thing. It doesn't matter how much angst comes in there, and I've got some really angsty books. I'm always shooting for that happily ever after. And just, you know, so many of my, like growing up, I was a real tomboy and my friends were guys. I spent more time with the guys than I did the girls. So just getting to like put all that stuff in there, that craziness that we used to do, and giving those guys that happily ever after while they're still tearing over the dirt bike track and you know, running from one end of the country to the other with their guitars and playing in the bands and, you know, going into the salvage yard and building stuff. That's all the stuff that I get to explore in my books. And just, you know, I'm too old for those misadventures now, so I get to live vicariously through my characters with them.
I know, right? You know, now we can look at those things and go, you know, I could get hurt if I do that. It didn't bother us back then.
There will be no 8 hours on the back of a horse going up the mountains taking pictures at almost 48 years old. Not anymore.
Davidson, how about you?
So kind of like being a mom, I wear many hats in the house. Like I'm a cook, I'm a nurse, I'm a driver, I'm, you know, all this stuff. And it's like mundane mom stuff. And, you know, so when I bring like the characters to life, it's, you know, I feel like I've been a mob boss, I've been a vampire, I've been a hitman. Sometimes I threaten that to my family. But why MM? So when I did fan fiction originally, way back then, I actually was MF. And because in my mind, it was just like, well, MF, I'm just going to do MF. Like, that's what's out there. There wasn't a lot of representation for LGBT books. Like, you couldn't find it as easily in like a Barnes and Noble. And I kind of, like I said, when I wrote it once and then I started reading it, and it just, I'm like, this is, I don't know what it was and why it was different, but it felt stronger. It felt like more of a connection in my head than any other book I'd read. And so when I started writing it, I said, I want to live my dreams of being like, you know, these morally great characters through men. It just felt right to me. So, yeah.
Okay. Anna.
So some writers research so that they can write, and I write so that I can research, so that I have an excuse for doing all of the research that I like to do and going down all the rabbit holes that I like to go down. And so that's why I write. And I write romance, and particularly queer romance, so that I can write the dirty, dirty sex.
Works for me. Stephanie?
Two things. When I started, there was a hint of taboo. So that means people would sit up and pay attention so you can ease a little of your opinions in there and hope that they agree, or even if they disagree, they might take in what the story is about. And the second thing is just trying to understand the male brain. Men think so differently than women in everything that they do in every aspect. And at one point I came up with a formula. When you ask a man, what are you thinking? And he says nothing, he really is thinking nothing. He could be going do, 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 do in his mind. And men tend to get off on money, power, and sex. Let's face it, those are the three things that rule the world. And food, let's not forget the food. So a man is constantly thinking about how can I get some? He gets it, and then he thinks of nothing, except maybe I'm hungry. So then, you know, you have to go and find some food to eat, but you can't get all of that unless you have power and money. So that's the cycle. And that's basically the tenets that are in male brains. And I've went through hundreds of men. And at the end, it was like, okay, the intensity is going to be different. The way they speak to each other is going to be different. The directness is going to be there more so than a male-female romance. So I just wanted to grab those things and, you know, stuff them in this book because, you know, once again, a little hint of taboo. And I really, really wanted to understand how that worked. And of course, there was the bonus of having all the weird, crazy, loving sex that I could find, the dirty, grungy, kinky stuff, the, you know, rough trade kind of thing, and then the sweet, gentle things. So, I mean, that was also fun to write. I mean, it's sex scene between two men, and two men think similarly. So it's like what they're thinking in their conversation is like titillating to me because it's a little more direct. So that, and it's just fun.
Okay. JL.
There are definitely MF romance authors that I read and enjoy, but it wasn't until I started reading romance that I understood the escapism that people go to romance for. And when I started digging into it more, I realized that it was because when you take out a certain element of the gender disparity, I thought that it allowed the characters to relate more to each other as two people. And I see this in the FF romance that I read too. And so that became much more interesting to me in terms of character dynamics and character interactions than in a lot of the MF romance that I had been reading. And so once I started, that's, I found authors that I liked, then I found more authors that I liked, and now I have a massive TBR pile. And so at this point, unless it's an MF series or an author, like one of like 3 authors that I still really, really like, it's like MM all the way, with some FF sprinkled in for good measure.
Yeah, kind of playing off that, for me, I love the equality of privilege that comes with 2 male characters just by virtue of them being male. I don't have to explain that this female protagonist is especially plucky and especially brave and especially all these other things that girls aren't, theoretically, because this one is. They're 2 guys. Everybody assumes all those good adjectives just kind of go along with being guys. I also don't have to twist myself into knots explaining that the female main character is still a nice girl, even though she really likes sex, or that she has some experience, or that she wants to have some experience, because they're guys. We assume they have experience. We know they like sex, and we give them a pass on that because that's not a litmus test for niceness with men. And that just made it so much easier, like Stephanie said, to be direct about it, to have them be direct about their feelings, to not have to deal with those gender norms. And I think that was one of the things that got me hooked on it, was the absence of all those things that had always made me feel like I couldn't quite relate to at least the male-female romance I happened upon. I have been told there is a lot of other stuff out there. I just didn't happen upon it. But, and I believe that, but I never quite felt like I could see myself in it. And then I started reading the male and said, yeah, this doesn't have the stuff in it that I didn't like, and it's got all the good stuff that I did. Where has this been all my life? And I kind of never looked back. So what haven't you written yet that you'd like to write? I know that's come up a little bit, but yeah, talk about what's burning in the back of your brain that you haven't gotten to yet. Layla?
I have a couple contemporaries that I've been tossing around for a couple years. I've also got a merfolk story, actually, that's mostly written. It started a long time ago. I just haven't refined it and filled it out to get that put out there. I've got Owl Shifters pretty much blocked out, and I have every intention of getting that out there. And I would love to do a superhero, and then I would love to go back to my roots and actually write a pro wrestling romance novel. And I've read a couple. They were really cool, so I would love to like do one. But like back in the day, we used to design the Fed, design the match, design all of the stuff, book everything out. So I would love to do that within the confines of a book and show all of that stuff that really is what went into getting me into writing full-time in the first place.
Okay, Davidson.
Okay, so I have a list. I have things that I want to do. I have a contemporary series that I have in my mind that I want to do that. I have another series with its Fae, a Fae in humans, of course, because why not? I really want to write an MC book, a motorcycle club, which I often get that they're surprised I haven't based on the characters I write. They're like, really? You didn't think that they would be morally ambiguous? I'm like, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm sorry. And it was funny because I was talking to Chloe Archer the other day and I said to her, I wanted to I think I want to write something with tentacles. And she's like, oh my God, do it now. So I have like a whole list of things. I don't think I'll ever, which is good. I think when you continue to have a list and you continue to have the dreams, the sparks that you still got this, it's when the ideas stop flowing that you start to sweat a little bit.
Okay, Anna.
So I have a list of things that are, sort of in progress. I've got like the next book in each of my contemporary books. I've got sort of the next book kind of like waiting in the wings to be writing. I have more octopus shifter stories to write. I have a tentacle old gods kind of series that's going to be historical and set in the coastal Maine town that I spend my time in. That's also, sort of waiting to be written. But in terms of something that I haven't yet started and want to someday, I think Fae is definitely something that I would like to someday do something with, and also rock stars, because rock stars are super, super fun. And I have enjoyed all of the rock star romances that I've read. And I would like to, I think I'm going to have to do that at some point as well.
Sounds good. Stephanie.
I have two. One I'm working on now. Because a few years ago, my husband got bit by a brown recluse spider. And that was like a year of hell trying to get his hand back. And it's now tendonless and some other things. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to write spiders. Not only are they going to be were spiders, they're going to be the type that don't shift into human. They're going to be human up top and spider at the bottom, who are mind controlled by a hive mind because they're alien invaders, and these are like the warriors. And mine's is with the scientists. And right now I have them trying to figure out if they could actually have sex without melting each other's innards. So
I am in.
I'm having fun with that one. And the second one is anime. I'm gonna have a character get isekai'd into this anime world, and he is the boss, the evil boss. And he's like, wait, what? I'm evil. And on top of that, he has a harem of men. And they just keep coming, even though he tries to get rid of them, they just keep coming. Because I love anime. And, in anime, they basically can figure out anything and do anything. So it's like, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it with my anime series. Let's just get somebody isekai there. And isekai literally means snatched to another world. So just put somebody in the other world that way. They have this thing because a lot of people in the isekai anime get hit by trucks. So they call it truck-kun. Yeah, I might have truck-kun pay my people a visit. And it's called That Anime Kind of Life. So I'm working on both of those because they're two things that I haven't done. And there was a third thing. I wanted to do transforming furniture and vehicles. And I figured, you know what? I've seen Transformer fan fiction. I can do something like that. I just have to figure out what type of robots and what they're going to look like and how the clank, clank, clank is going to work. And is it going to be robot on robot or robot on human? Threesome, foursome, which body parts are detachable, which has either optional massage and vibrate, all that good stuff is going to be in there. I just have to put it all in place and get it up on the storyboard.
JL.
I mean, let me like finish the first book here, guys. But what's funny is that after cranking out over like 5 years, more than 5 years, and like full on arc series, I'm just really excited to write like standalones, even if they are part of the same series. So that's exciting right now. And then other than the contemporary military, I write down all these crazy like cosmic horror ideas, like more science fiction-y than Lovecrafty, like death of civilization stuff. And so I'm sure that'll turn into something eventually.
Yeah, I think I'd really like to write a cozy mystery with a pair of main characters who either are already in an established relationship or fall for each other, and then go off and continue to solve mysteries. Keep thinking I'm going to write one, and then it gets too gory to be a cozy mystery. So, I'll keep trying. Gets too scary. And I definitely plan to write a Morgan Brice connection in an epic fantasy series. My Assassins of Landry series is a buddy flick epic fantasy series. It's a little shorter, a little lighter, a little funnier. And there are 2 pairs of gay secondary characters that show up in that series, and I want to give them their own books and maybe some more adventures as well. So that's going to be epic fantasy male romance, because mystery male romance. I think that could be a lot of fun. Well, folks, as usual, we have blown through our time way too fast. So let's go around and let everybody know where they can find you online. And if you have a new, recent, or upcoming book, tell us about it. Layla?
So I can be found under Layla Dorine, pretty much everywhere online. I have a newsletter that I've actually been being pretty consistent with. Got a Wix website. I'm almost always on Facebook. My latest release is actually Painted Love. It is a pet play. I have a ferret, a kitty, and a really sexy fireman. But on August 11th, I actually have my first Lion Shifter book coming out. It is a Lion Shifter harem romance. So we're talking 5 M's. It was a lot of fun to do, and there will be more big cats in the future.
Very good. Davidson?
So you could find me at davidsonking.com. You could definitely find me on Facebook and in my reader group on Facebook often. Pretty much if you just put Davidson King in for anything, it's going to be on that platform. It just makes my life easier. My next release is actually July 17th, and it's The Last Seer, which is book 3 in my Black Veil series. It's a paranormal. I really love writing that series. I probably could just sit in my house and write that series like all the time, but people want more things. So, and yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anna?
You can find me most reliably at my website, annakensing.com. I'm on a social media fast right now, although I have a presence in most social media places, with my name, Anna Kensing. I do have a newsletter, which I am maintaining during my social media fast. So that's kind of where I'm putting my time and energy instead of being on Facebook or Instagram or places like that. And then my most recent release is a contemporary book. It's called His Dad Will Do, and it's revenge banging a cheating ex-boyfriend's dad.
Okay. Stephanie?
Just recently, as last week, I had a novel called Craven's Downfall that just released. This takes place in Fae Kingdom, and we're dealing with the unseelie Fae, because I find them also a little bit more direct than the Seelie. And you can find me at author Stephanie Burke. Oh my goodness, I forgot my own website. Fudge. Well, look up Stephanie Burke, and that'll be the first thing you saw me. Oh, author.stephanieburke.author. That's what it is. 2 authors in there. And like I said, I have a bunch of new stuff that's about to be pumped out, and some of my backlog is going to be re-released in Amazon. So you can check out my Amazon page, it's Stephanie Burke, and see what's popping there. I also keep things about the conventions and information like that flowing. So yay, that's me.
JL?
So the Urban Fantasy series is finished. The final book is with my editor. Steel Legacy's release date is TBD, but I'm the big finale and a couple sex scenes away from finishing the first Paranormal, Earth and Water, which will, because chronologically it takes place like 10 years before the end of the other series. I figure I can go ahead and release that even if that one isn't done yet. So probably this fall. And until then, jlgribble.com is where you can find my review blog. I post reviews 3 or 4 times a week. Usually at least half of them are arcs. I actually thought that this whole panel was going to be about like stuff that was coming out and stuff that we read. So I had like this whole list prepared of stuff that I'm like my most recent favorites and like stuff that I'm looking forward to. So if you want to chat with me at any time, I'm on Facebook probably way too much. You can find me there. You can find my reader group, JL Gribble's Reader Guild, or just follow the blog or my monthly newsletter.
Post
Okay.
it on the newsletter. Post the list on the newsletter.
I do. Yeah. The newsletter always has a wrap up of all the books that I read in the past month with links to the reviews and my
I'm probably
my top
just going to stalk you. I'm probably just going to stalk you everywhere now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that sounds good.
just so you know.
I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbrice.com. If you spell them right, you'll find me on all the social media sites. My latest release is Point Blank in my Badlands series, but the upcoming release is Roustabout, and that'll be part of the Carnival of Mysteries multi-author shared world series. And that'll be coming out in August. So yeah, lots of good stuff to look forward to. Well, folks, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more romance coming up on Continual, so we'll see you online.